Tonight, bishops in Cameroon blamed the government and Anglophone activists for the escalating violence in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. As the National Episcopal Conference meets in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, members are now reflecting on solutions to the current socio-political crisis rocking the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. Also ahead, 3 detainees of the Anglophone crisis sentenced to more than 10 euros in prison. The court's decision that was made public yesterday is coming barely few days to another court appearance of Mancho BBC and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis, that is this Friday. Also ahead is Nigerian Front in negotiating his way into Cameroon Senate. The chairman of the Social Democratic Front has described the article that was published by the Continental magazine Jeune Afrique as unfounded. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Bishops from the 10 regions of Cameroon are now reflecting on the causes, consequences, and solutions to the Anglophone crisis, the crisis that has been rocking the northwest and the southwest regions of the country for more than 1 year now. They say that social, political, and economic activities have been grounded since the crisis started. In November 2016, the Archbishop of Bamenda, Reverend Father Michael Bibi, noted that besides prayers that the Catholic Church has been engaged in for several months now, there is need for dialogue. Let's hear him in the following excerpt.
From the Archbishop of Yaoundé reminded us about the fact that our meeting is taking place within the context of the present socio-political problem, especially in the north and the southwest region. When this problem started in 2016, I am sure if anybody was asked that by this time in 2018 we'll still be living through the problem, we would not believe that the problem will still be continuous. But the reality is that the problem is still continuing. You know, the military men are still being killed. In retaliation, the military killed the civilians and destroyed property. And I think that it has reached a stage that the head of state, you know, our father and our president, if you have children in the house who are secessionists or terrorists, I think it's important to bring them together for an inclusive dialogue with everybody involved so that they can actually bring out what their grievances are and be able to, you should be able to find out from them, you know, what makes them to behave the way they are behaving, and if possible, if the solutions taken so far is not resolving the problem, it means that there is something fundamental that still needs to be done. And I think having that dialogue and getting everybody involved is going to be of help in order to bring back peace in the north and the southwest region. The bishops of the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province and the bishops of Cameroon, it has been our wish that this problem should be resolved as soon as possible, and we continue to pray that God will give wisdom to our leaders so that all of us will be able to see the importance of peace. And of course, we cannot have peace when there is no justice, so that we can look for lasting solutions as far as this problem is concerned.
And the Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese in the nation's capital said that the conclave of bishops is centered on peace. Archbishop Jean Baga noted that the prelates are also seeking ways to what he called the best way out of the current socio-political unrest in the 2 Anglophone regions of Cameroon. Let's hear him in the following excerpt. He was speaking to our reporter in Yaoundé, Marcel Nganso.
This Marian year is dedicated to the peace in our country, because Mary is our patroness in Cameroon for many times ago. And we pray together with Mary, we pray God to keep our country in peace, in solidarity. That's why we are very concerned about the situation in the southwest and the northwest regions. We intend to contribute to find solutions at our level, we welcome all the people coming from that regions to find in our church places, schools, and many accommodations. This is the sign of our solidarity in concrete practice. We also intend to, in this conference, to share with all the bishops and look for what can be now the best way to stop violence, to stop aggressions, and to live together after this crisis. For my priest about Father Nkodo, yes, now he has been called by the judiciary authority to give his version of facts. He's free, but he now following what we can say a process, and we are looking for the end of this process to know exactly what is the truth about this problem that all the people is now talking about. So let us wait for the issue of that. Stop to say things false or fake news about the father. We will know after the process what is really the truth about this problem. I want to say that our Episcopal Conference is now facing about what we can say, how to make that our church continue to grow and play his social role in our country in the way that we can contribute to the well-being of all the people in our nation. That is what I can say now. It would be better to come after this assembly to have the conclusions of our sharing participation here.
And as we announced in the headlines, some detainees of the Anglophone crisis were yesterday sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. One of them is Terence Penkan, found guilty of terrorism, secession, group rebellion, and incitement. 11 years behind bars by the military tribunal in the nation's capital. The court's ruling is coming at the time when some Anglophone activists have given as precondition for the return to normalcy the release of all those that have so far been arrested in connection with the socio-political crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. It should be noted that it is coming barely few days to another court appearance of Mancho BBC and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis. They are expected in court at the military tribunal. Check-up in the early hours of this morning. We are having reports that he is safe and sound. And users of the Boya Kumba route in the southwest region of the country have to brave the broken nature of the roads few meters into Moyoka, while in the Fako division of the southwest region of Cameroon, Derek Jato, when there is reporting that accidents are common on that stretch of road. His report.
This is the picture of a spot on the Mutengene Kumba, National Road number 8. We are at Lyongu, a village after Boya, along the Boya Kumba Highway, where a pool of water has taken close to 90% of this particular portion of the road. And this remaining track, almost reduced now to a footpath, is today serving as an accident trap.
You might want to take a right path and go to collide with somebody who was on his own track.
On camera, Equinoxe television captured these pictures of a biker almost knocked down by an oncoming vehicle for trying to sneak his way through.
are almost there for any of the condition of the road. Only for so the one thing na track.
This road is very dangerous. The government should try and fix this particular portion of the road, for a lot of accidents have occurred here. He says,
Let
the council try and fix this road. They must not only wait on the government. Another driver added,
my brother, where the road they show, I don't know how I picked up, because the road they show is worrying me. For night, the one comes so come young.
The already bad situation is made worse at night. Heavy trucks are a threat to us commercial bikers. Here, anything can happen at any time. This road user lamented. Apart from being the national road number 8, on the main road connecting Kumba, the economic capital of the region, to Boya, the administrative headquarters, this Mutengeni-Kumba Mountain Road is economically a window for the exit of natural resources like wood out of the southwest region to the outside world.
And after a continental magazine, Jeune Afrique, wrote an article on the principal opposition chairman, Nijan Fundi has reacted. Is the national chairman actually negotiating his way into the Senate? He says that the article that was written by Jeune Afrique is unfounded. Nijan Fundi granted an exclusive interview to Equinoxe Television's Babla Jonathan that was on phone this morning from Bamenda. Let's hear him in the following interview.
I have not given an interview or granted an interview to Jeune Afrique at any one time of the recent past. I talked to Jeune Afrique, I think, almost 18 years ago when they stopped publishing about the SDF. So I do not know whether the Jeune Afrique they are still in existence. And for them to say a reputable newspaper like that, to say that I am negotiating to get into Senate, I refused turning the elections. I handed that over as I handed the baton for the presidential race of the party. So I couldn't have handed things over and I'll go behind. I'm negotiating that I should be accepted to go into Senate, first to go into Senate and then to be the president of Senate.
Mr. Chairman, the article equally indicated that you went to the presidency and you had some secret talk with the president of the republic concerning that. Have you ever been to the presidency for that, Mr. Chairman?
The last time I met with the president was when the Cameroonians bought the cup that they won from Gabon. And I met with him in the hall. We never had any secret talks again thereafter. And for a reputable news organ like Jeune Afrique to have this information and they publish it, to maintain their credibility, they could have called me to find out whether I ever went to the presidency for anything, so that you publish both sides of the stories that we heard this. We contacted Fundi.
And Buddha was the region of Cameroon is in the hands of the parents. It is after security forces launched investigations. We can see how found by her companion, or with her companion feeding the baby. Her companion was claiming and celebrating with relatives, believing that the lady actually put to bed. And it should be noted that the child was taken to hospital. Doctors concluded that the baby is in good health. That was an incident that occurred a few days ago. The child was found with the abductor. That was yesterday here in the economic capital, Douala. Now, hundreds of inhabitants of the Katiewit neighborhood in the Douala 2 subdivision have been rendered homeless by a demolition exercise that was carried out by authorities. The houses were demolished to build for the construction of the land. The land is said to be belonging to the Douala International Airport. They were demolished for the execution of an extension project within the framework of efforts to raise the airport to international standard. Details with Innocent Aze.
Some of the over 300 affected inhabitants could still be seen in Wadesienge and Batia neighborhoods in Douala, searching and transporting their properties to unknown destinations. A ramification of an operation for all to liberate these areas that are neighbors to the Douala International Airport. Residents of these two inhabited areas, now leveled like football pitches, never saw these mass demolitions approaching. From a state of astonishment to commotion, these hundreds of affected persons end up homeless. A nursing mother and her newborn baby now have open air as their new home. Some, aware of the warnings earlier given by governments, think authorities should have at least waited for the school year to be over before the demolition exercise, such that their children continue schooling.
Regulate their activities. One of the challenges cited by bikers is the cumbersome nature of the identification process. To get identified, we need a vehicle registration certificate, global tax, windscreen Other motorbike riders also complain that the process is time-consuming. I have not yet been identified because the documents demanded takes us up to a week to compile them, and this makes us to lose clients. Council officials, who equally have the role of providing majority of these documents to riders, have said that the setbacks are not at their level. This process witnessed a huge delay because the regional administratives who were in charge of coordinating these documents suddenly took a pause, a decision of which we are ignorant. The motorbike riders have 3 months to procure the necessary documents for identification. Is it the search for greener pastures, or Cameroonian authorities need to be worried about the safety of their athletes? It should be noted that at least 8 athletes have disappeared from Cameroon's delegation at the Commonwealth Games that is taking place in Gold Coast, Australia. The official information was made known by the head of Team Cameroon delegation, Agbo Victor, in a press release that was made public yesterday. Simanjikan Gabriel in the following report tells us that it is not happening for the first time.
There were 24 who traveled to Australia for the Commonwealth Games, but 8 have already disappeared into thin air. According to a press release signed by the head of delegation for Team Cameroon in Australia, Victor Agbonso, 5 of the missing athletes are boxers, while the other 3 are weightlifters. Amongst the missing athletes, two are still to effectively take part in the games. The 5 boxers who disappeared include Fotsala Simplice, Foku Asen, Nzi Nchoi Christian, Yumbu Orish, and Ndiang Christel. And the 3 weightlifters include Matam Olivier, Erakil, Minkumba Petit Daniel, and Fojo Ak-Angel Sogbon. In a bid to get hold of the missing athletes, the officials have contacted the Australian police to go in search of them. If Cameroon is best at occupying the first spot in athletes disappearing at major competition, on the pitch, Cameroon has just a bronze medal. It is not the first time athletes representing Cameroon at international sports events have been declared missing. At the Olympic Games in London 2012, 12 athletes disappeared, and years before in Sydney, many athletes also didn't return home. While others have succeeded in making it big in Europe, most athletes who have disappeared at competition grounds have never been caught. The head of the Cameroon delegation to Australia has announced that 2 weightlifters and the basketball team, alongside some officials, are already on their way back in the country.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. We shall be right back. And in the second part of this newscast, we are going to be receiving a common law lawyer, a barrister at law here in the economic capital, Douala, Barrister Tamfu. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point. Good evening to you.
Good evening,
Barrister Tamfu Richard, thank you so much for coming.
The pleasure is all mine.
Now, some detainees of the Anglophone crisis have actually been sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. More than 10 years because we have 12 years for Terence Penn, and for other 2 Anglophone detainees have been sentenced to 11 years in prison each. There were 2 of them. What is your reaction following this court's ruling, given that we have been having continuous calls from actors of the civil society, politicians in Cameroon, and even international organizations for the government of Cameroon to secure the release of all the detainees of the Anglophone crisis?
Well, from the onset of this trial, most people, all the actors, were agitating that this was a political trial. Even the president himself was very clement to have pardoned some. So the other trials that continue to be investigated or to be continue to be heard finally arrived at a sentence which you are just informing me, and it's really sad for them because they are victim of something which I don't think there were sufficient allegations or evidence to really put all those offenses on their back. But yes, the sentence is there already. So to me, as a lawyer, I will just tell them to accept it, and then they have possibilities of going on appeal if the sentence came in maybe yesterday or the day after.
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. So if they are not satisfied with that sentence, they can go on appeal. They have 10 days to do that.
Now, the sentence is based on the 2014 anti-terrorism law.
Yes.
That was highly criticized by legal minds and even some parliamentarians when deliberations were ongoing in 2014. Now, is the law not finally showing its ugly face of suppressing liberty of expression in Cameroon?
Well, everybody was against, everybody was against this arrest and trial, because we all accepted that they were victims of political circumstances, and that trying them was not fair, because people will not be arrested in Bamenda and dragged to Yaoundé, and they are on a going trial maybe with a language they do not understand. So we think justice has not actually been meted because it was unfair. Now it has continued. We only pray that if they do not succeed in having a lower sentence at the level of the appeal court, that the president again should come in with his presidential decree on pardon to see if they can benefit from a premature release from prison. Also, the criminal procedure code also gives them a a presidential pardon or using that provision of the Criminal Procedure Code, they could be released prematurely.
Meaning that all hopes are not lost?
No, all hopes are not lost. All hopes are not. The first hope is that they have the right to go on appeal. The ongoing on appeal, the sentence can still be reviewed. If that does not go into their favor, they can look on to the president to wait for maybe a presidential decree on pardon. You
talked about an unfair trial. Are you one of those who were equally advocating for their release?
Yes, actually, from the onset, one of those lawyers. I followed the prosecution of Barrister Abokbala when it was still ongoing, and all the times I have the opportunity to be maybe on your TV station, I always aired my view to say that for us to end this crisis, that in sentencing some is still aggravating the situation. We have all seen how this crisis started from nothing, from simple revendications. Now you hear people are abducted, guns are all over in circulations. We don't know what can happen next. So today some are sentenced. I don't think we are moving towards
the court's decision. Mancho, BBC and other detainees of the Anglophone crisis will be appearing in court in a few days from now, precisely on the 13th of April 2018, on Friday this week. Do you think that they have some chances? Is it already painting a picture of what the verdict as far as their case is concerned will be all about?
Yes, we all know that the law on terrorism is the punishment under the law of terrorism is the sentences are always very heavy, even going as far as the death penalty. So they have the military tribunals has already shown the way that those who are standing trial, obviously they will be sentenced. So I don't expect something different from what has been slammed on penitents. And like I said, it is not yet over. The president still has a say. He can decide to, just like Detainees, she was pardoned by the presidential decree. Tangana Mibara, others who also
and even other detainees of the Anglophone crisis,
yes, so
even though they were not sentenced yet.
Good, exactly. So the president can still, if he's still in line with trying to bring or seeking peaceful solutions to this crisis, he still has so much to do.
Meaning that the head of state has a yam and a knife?
Yes, yes, that is the head of the state. From the beginning of this crisis, everything reposed on him. To me, I think at times I keep to believe that this crisis is benefiting some people, because I don't see why we have the possibility to put an end onto something and we don't want to put it. If the president of the republic stands today and say, okay, I want to stop this Anglophone crisis, all those who are arrested within this Anglophone crisis, I set you free. Children, abandon your arms, come to the table, let's talk. What are your grievances? The president can even invite third parties. If, for example, they say, no, it won't be fair, the president can invite the Francophonie, can invite the African Union, bodies, all those international bodies, NGOs, human rights. Like in a war zone, the secessionists have their own people that they have adopted. The government has some people that they have adopted. So I think all of them now put what they have on the table of negotiation, and from there, through the dialogue phase,
there can be solutions. Now, the impact of the court's decision on the current Anglophone crisis, what do you have to say about how it can affect the current socio-political situation?
Those are still aggravating measures. It will still go on aggravating things. That is Pen Terence. That was a teacher in CAS. Now he's been sentenced over something which on his personal note knows that the trial is unfair. The people who are supporting him, or be it the Siseko or whosoever, the people who are behind them will continue to fuel the crisis to say, no, the injustice will will not accept this injustice. We will fight to the end, and that is how the radicalization keep on climbing. So to me, I think that sentencing these people, for example, Mancho BBC, who is even more popular than the others, slamming him a sentence maybe on the 14, may instead add more fuel to this crisis. So I think the government or the President of the Republic still has a very open way to put an end to this. He can use his power as head of state to end this crisis if he wishes.
And you mentioned Sisiko, Ayuktabe and others that were actually picked up in Nigeria and brought to Cameroon, according to Cameroon's communication minister.
This person of the government really wanted to show to Cameroonians that they are alive. Why not handcuff them, chain them, and then present to the public that yes, people, you see, yes, I followed the communique. He says they are in good health. They have had, but I don't even think a lawyer has even had access to them. So, to me, I don't believe into that until I see them.
Thank you so much, Barrister Tamfo Richard, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you, Mimi.
So, it was equally a pleasure having with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on the Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.